You can use food to achieve what you want to achieve, because foods is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. You know,
Right.
life is not about food.
Right. So, okay, so if someone's eating pretty healthy, they're eating maybe stir-fried vegetables and grains, you say, okay, start to eat some live foods, lettuce or something, to start to assimilate that.
Yeah, green leaves is that transition food because it allows that acid-forming substance, say meat or cooked grains, to be digested much better.
And then what's the next step? So they let go of maybe cooking some grains or something.
I'll tell you what works. I'll tell you what works. You know, I'm a raw vegan. It means I'm a raw plant food eater, and I've been doing that. In January, it's going to be 4 years eating 100% raw plant foods. And you know, it doesn't start out. You know, one day I'm eating meat, and then the next day I'm on that.
Give us the process.
Yeah, so the process goes first letting go of red meat, then letting go of pork, then letting go of chicken, then letting go of fish, then letting go of milk, then letting go of cheese, and it works. That works. That process of just letting it go of a little bit at a time. And you know what? It's exciting because it's a journey. If you're letting go of some of these foods, it makes life more interesting.
So then you let go of the cooked foods and you start to integrate more of the live foods.
More of the live foods.
So let's go through that process and how we start to integrate the oils and the fats into the fresh greens, because you've talked about oils and fats. So where do we get that from?
It's very important that we begin to get organic foods. And here in New York City, there's plenty of organic foods available. You know, I tell people that, hey, this right here is a Rolls Royce. You don't put regular leaded fuel in a Rolls Royce. Organic food doesn't have the sprays, it doesn't have the pesticide, and you're worth the extra money. I mean, if you're not going to spend more money on yourself, what are you going to spend more money on?
Right.
And a great principle that I teach in a new book that I have coming out in my lectures is that life change comes from the inside out. So if I want to make you healthier, I have to become healthier myself. So that means I have to feed myself better food, better quality food.
So then what happens, and we'll get into this whole field, when we start to put this good food, the junk in our bodies that have been stored since we were born, all that, you know, processed food and everything, that has to come out, and that's disturbing to the system.
Yes, so that's right.
Let's really go through that and tell people what they can do to help detoxify.
Great, great. One thing is you got to remember is that it's better to have that stuff out of your body than in your body.
So what's the first process of this detoxification?
Very first thing I think that people should do is just to begin to include more raw plant foods, organic foods into their diet. And then as they progress, they'll notice that they may be going through some detoxification symptoms.
Like what?
Like, for example, rashes may appear, symptoms of old illnesses, maybe like a fever or a cold that they've had in the past. A type of, you know, maybe they could throw out a lot of mucus. Generally, it's mucus related. When you're detoxifying, most of the toxicity in your body is held in a mucus type formation in the mucous membranes of the body, the lymph system, and then when it's detoxified, it comes out as mucus. So you could be throwing out some stuff through the nose or through the mouth.
How is mucus able to come by eating this better, pure diet? What happens physiologically to bring that mucus out of the body?
Okay, yeah. First of all, the reason why we're doing this is because we want to become younger. We want to become more beautiful. We want to become something that we weren't before, maybe vibrantly healthy. Maybe we're going to lose weight or whatever. And the way we do that is just decreasing cooked, increasing raw. Physiologically, what's happening is that as we begin to thin out or create less dense foods in our digestive systems, then our blood becomes less dense. Now let me explain this. A surgeon knows, for example, both my parents are medical doctors, my dad's performed many surgeries. He would tell me, you know, 24 hours before he'd operate, that person he was operating on could not have any food. The reason is because food directly affects the state of the blood. Now the blood feeds our cells. It feeds the lymph, which bathes every cell. So we can imagine we have one membrane here, which is our food membrane, all the food that comes in through there. Then we have all our blood, which is directly representative of the food. And then we have the lymph. Over a lifetime of eating very dense food, having very dense blood, our lymph becomes very dense.
The actual tissue of the lymphatic system.
The tissue of our skin, what's here, what's going on in our heads and in our cheeks and all this, becomes thick.
Because of the reaction to the cooked food?
No, just because of the cooked food itself. The cooked food itself is very dense, so we become more dense.
So it accumulates, the density accumulates within the body.
Within the body.
It's not processed out through the intestines.
So some of it is, but over a lifetime it accumulates.
Right, okay.
And then when we now what happens is if we thin out the food, we start putting in raw plant foods, which is a little bit lighter. It has the water there. Then the blood becomes a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
And then the lymph, all of a sudden this thick lymph is looking over at the blood saying, hey, there's nobody over there. Let's move some of the stuff out. And so it starts to move some of the old stuff out of the lymph into the blood. And then we can experience some of these detoxification symptoms.
So you're saying the lymphatic system is not able to drain itself fully because the blood doesn't have any room for it to dump its stuff in.
In the average person, that's exactly right. The average person goes without food, say, for 8 to 10 or 12 hours.
Yes.
And they begin to feel hungry, and then after like 16 hours, they begin to feel lightheaded and weird and queasy. And the reason that is because the lymph is looking over at the blood and going, hey, there's nothing over there. Let's start, throwing some of this stuff out there. And that's when you can get that lightheadedness. That's caused actually by detoxification. I myself, I just recently did a 3-day water fast just this past weekend without any trouble. I don't feel any hunger anymore, but that's a process that you go through. When your body gets clean, you can fast very easily, go without food.
And not get lightheaded.
Exactly. Because the lymph is clean. So it's not looking over at the blood going, hey, there's nothing over there.
I see. So the bad breath or the headaches is all the process of the junk coming out of the lymph back into the blood.
Bad breath is a good sign. It's good. And the reason it's good is because the body's going, hey, we've got some poison here. Let's try to get it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it then in detoxification, there's things that you recommend that can help that process along, speed it up?
Yes.
And what are those?
Well, there's this, popular in New York City right now, and it's something I've been doing myself, is actually doing a gallbladder flush.
Yeah, is that something that might be too advanced if we're just starting, or do you recommend talking about
Yeah, we could talk about that.
Good.
Yeah, and it's out there in books, and it's very important that people know about it.
Okay.
Our liver is the toxic chemical factory of our body. So if we take in lots of toxicity in the air and in the foods and stuff, it usually ends up in the liver, and then the liver has to try to handle it, and then the liver has to eliminate it in the waste ducts.
Okay.
In its own waste ducts, which is called the gallbladder and the gallbladder ducts, which lead into our intestines, and then we can eliminate those. Now what happens over a lifetime of eating high cholesterol foods and starchy foods is that we form what's called gravel or stones in the waste ducts of the liver.
Gallstones.
Gallstones, exactly. Now what happens is that if those gallstones start to accumulate and up into the liver, we can have major liver problems.
I see.
And this is a very important thing that we have to keep the liver clean.
And most people, from what I've studied, do have major liver problems, whether they know it or not.
Yes.
You can see it by the lines on their face,
The texture of the skin is a direct representation of what's happening in the liver.
Right.
So if you see someone with a lot of stuff happening on the face, that's going on, that exact process is going on also in the liver. So now what we can do is, after we've been eating a lot of raw plant foods, including organic foods in our diet, then after a few months of that, then we may want to do 3 days of drinking only freshly made apple juice.
Not apple cider?
Not apple cider, freshly made apple juice.
Why juice, not cider?
Well, I think cider is a little bit more processed. If you're talking about apple cider vinegar or just apple cider?
No, apple cider from squeezed apples.
Oh, yeah, that would be fine. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I was just, for some reason, I thought apple cider vinegar.
Apple cider or apple juice.
Yeah, and the reason why apple is very good is it stimulates the peristaltic wave, and it helps to soften those stones.
And there's something in apple, too, that pepsin.
Pepsin, that's right. Yeah, which is an enzyme.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So we
do that for 3 days.
Okay.
Okay. On the 4th day, we go until about 2:30, and that's usually when the liver is 2:30 in the afternoon. That's usually when the liver is moving stuff through the gallbladder and through the
biological clock.
the ducts.
Right.
Right. Then what we do is we drink about 8 ounces of olive oil straight. That's right. You heard me. You get some good organic olive oil, and you take 8 ounces of it, and you actually just drink that straight. And then immediately following that, you get some freshly squeezed lemon juice, and you drink that. Now what this does is it causes the liver to go, ugh.
It doesn't